You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. All right, folks, the Obama administration, more than 150 people, black former staffers for the Obama administration, signed a letter condemning Trump's recent racist go-back remarks aimed at the 4 minority women of Congress who are freshmen. President Barack Obama also weighed in, saying he's proud of how his former staff is continuing to fight for an America that's better. The letter was published in an op-ed in the Washington Post on Friday. Avis, I want to go to you first. I mean, what you have here, and again, guys like RC and the Candace Owens of the world and the rest of them, they can be loud, they can be wrong, they can wear their red hats or whatever, but it is abundantly clear that what Donald Trump wants to do is he wants to have a race discussion. What he wants is he wants to pit races against each other because he knows these attacks that he is involved in is appealing directly to these low education white voters, the white men who went for him by more than 30%. But the problem, according to Ron Brownstein, is that white women who are working class voters are not necessarily being appealed to with this. So he's actually making a dangerous play here. But this seems to be his only play because, frankly, a whole bunch of people don't like this nasty man.
Well, that's true, although I'm not sure that I agree that he doesn't appeal to white women. I mean, we do recall that he won 54% of the white women's vote last time. And I just have, and to be perfectly honest, there were white women under Klan hoods just as well as there were white men under Klan hoods. So let's just be very real about that. But you're exactly right. His specific strategy, and it's not, I'm not even giving him the credit for coming up with it. This is just who he is. But if you remember, his advisor, Steve Bannon, specifically has said that they win when they are racially divisive. And basically what he is looking to do is to really energize his base so they would overperform on Election Day. What he's not taking into consideration is that if the Democrats can get their act together in terms of messaging and in terms of really inspiring their base to turn out in key states, that they can overcome those very slim margins that he won by in key states across the nation last time. It's really about a battle of who is going to energize their base more, and probably there's nothing that can energize people more than being mad, and he's making a whole hell of a lot of people mad these days.
I think
Joy,
that...
Joy,
yes.
Go ahead.
No, I think that Avis is right. We can't count on white women to vote against him. But we know from other statewide races since the election of Donald Trump, black women forming together can defeat a candidate. And black men who are allowed to vote because of the criminal justice system, so many black men and women are outside of the system. We need voter turnout. And we also have to understand that pitting race is not new in our history. Using race against us is not new in our history, yet we continue to prevail. We just have to realize and stay connected and stay woke enough to go to the polls and not keep arguing back and forth whether or not it's good enough to vote. We have to vote. This is life and death. Not only is he dog whistling or hollering out to his people, but the streets aren't safe. There are more and more people in those red caps or supporters of the red caps who feel like they can police you on the street. More and more videos of white people deciding you can't come in this building, you can't cook out, you can't. They're feeling emboldened by this. So it's not just about the election of 2020. It's about the quality of life for black people in this country.
So RC, real simple. Why are you perfectly fine with Trump making appeals, his racist appeals? You cool with that? You approve of that?
Well, look, I don't think that the president is making quote-unquote racist appeals. I think, if anything, the Democrats are the ones attempting to, create an issue with this election over race. Here's something I also will say. I will say that black Americans are now just starting to stand up. I like the little intro where you attempt to kind of disparage people who think like me or people who think like Candace. However, you're failing to acknowledge that this is what the majority of Black Americans are really starting to feel like. There's eventually going to be a time in which people who...
That's a lie.
What street do you
show me the evidence where a majority of African Americans agree with you and Candace. Show me the evidence.
That's not exactly what I said. I say a majority of Americans have this growing sentiment that President Trump is kind of stoking at when he talks about things such as the decrepit conditions in Baltimore. Those kinds of things, when the president mentions that, that is going to make Blexit even more of a reality. That's what's going to make Black Americans stand up. There's not only R.C. Maxwell. There's not only Candace Owens. Sure, these may be the names that you see in the media, but there's Black Americans every single day that I see videos of that are starting to come out and stand up more and more every day, especially when you look at some of the data from a place like Florida where Black women stood up for not Andrew Gilliam, Ron DeSantis. Why? Because of things just out of school choice. So you guys are attempting to paint somewhat of a bleak outlook of President Trump's ability to garner support from African-American communities. However, that cannot be farther from the truth based upon things that we've seen.
RC, you said a majority of Americans. First of all, you were talking about Black folks, then you flipped it to Americans. But a Pew Research Center poll showed that 56% of Americans say Trump has made race relations worse. I'm sorry, where's your data?
56 of Americans can say that President Trump has made race relations worse. That doesn't mean that the Democrats are going to win Wisconsin, Florida, Michigan, Ohio, and states that they need to win.
Now you're changing your tune. Now you're changing your tune. Let me give you one more. The Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. 57% of Americans considered Trump to be racist. Where's your data?
Okay, all these polls and all this data can say one thing, and then when it comes to the election, we're going to have complete different results. So you can continue to tout these polls that held you in 2016, but I'm going to rely upon the data that I'm hearing.
Let me remind you.
In terms of what you're seeing from new figures. Kimberly
the data you're hearing on the street.
Inspired young Black Americans who are standing up for President Trump, and it's going to catch on, and you're going to see it come 2020. Guarantee it.
RC, let me help you out with something as somebody who is a veteran at this. Okay? Now hold on, Joy. Let me help you, RC. Never, ever come on television, come on radio, and say a majority of Americans feel this way if you don't have the receipts. I asked you for the receipts. You can't supply them. You said
silent
people
majority,
I talk
Roland.
to on the streets.
Why we have the term silent majority.
I provided you actual data.
Lost the house, I guess.
Data. We call that receipts. And you can't even respond to it. So again, RC, don't ever do that because a guy like me will bust you in real time. Go ahead, Avis. Go ahead, Avis.
ABC,
Go ahead,
NBC, all
Avis.
polls that says that everyone hates President Trump
Go
and
ahead,
Hillary
Avis.
Clinton.
Avis, go ahead.
Cling on to your flawed data.
My name is Avis.
RC, stop talking. Avis's turn to talk.
I just thought it was
Avis's turn to talk. Avis, go ahead.
You're well, thank you. I just thought it was very interesting that he alluded to a solid majority in the most recent election that we had. In terms of Congress, we literally saw a blue wave in terms of a huge takeover of the House. And so I find it very interesting that this silent majority was so silent that apparently they decided not to even vote. I also kind of remember recently seeing a video of a young Black man who was, and I suppose perhaps is rethinking his support of President Trump after the tweets that Trump specifically put out telling the 4 Black women of color congresswomen to go back to where he came from. Now, inexplicably, he says that comment came out of left field, which I don't understand how he got that interpretation. But then he goes on to say that it really caused him to really question, what was his motivation and the fact that he was perhaps racist. And he specifically said out of his mouth, a Black Republican who was a pro-Trump Republican specifically said that other friends of his who are also formerly Trump supporters are now going on to support people like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because now they see him for what and who he is, which is, of course, a racist, intellectually deficient, as well as a very evil and hateful human being.
You know, I think that...
Joy, final comment.
Okay, I think that people like RC and the gentleman that Avis was just referring to, who we saw last week on this video, actually do believe that they were the good Negroes and that they would be accepted by this president and its races because you are different. And then they're surprised when they get lumped in with the rest of us out in the field. And so now they're in shock, and they can't defend it. RC, you can't defend it. This gentleman couldn't defend it, and neither can anybody else because you are still a black person. And he's not saying, oh, just those black people I don't like go home. He's saying all y'all go home. Now, I'm actually at home. So, but I just don't, you can't separate yourself from the rest of the race because it's convenient for you. It's all of us.
Just
attack
like
is on
you can't
all of
attempt
us.
to silence black people that you disagree with, Joy.
I would not want to silence the black people I disagree with. I would just want facts and figures.
RC.
I'm not trying to silence you. All I'm trying to tell you is that you're not thinking logically. You're not thinking logically. You are thinking.
I'm not silencing you, RC.
RC from Roly Poly, right?
RC,
because black voices that are
silence you.
Protected, right?
RC, I can't silence you if I'm the one who brought you on the show. What I will not do is let you lie. That's not going to happen.
Okay. Well, speaking of lies, let's talk about the Baltimore Sun editorial board while you cut me off when I couldn't talk about how that same editorial board who wrote a scathing op-ed against the president is the same.
Oh, absolutely.
RC, you're trying to go back, but you can't even argue your current point. All right, folks, back to our Roland Unfiltered video in just one moment. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk a lot about marijuanastock.org. Why? Because I want to keep you informed of investment opportunities that make sense. We have all watched the growth of the cannabis industry. A recent report by New Frontier Data estimates the global cannabis market at more than $340 billion. And we know that marijuana legalization is sweeping the country state by state. We also know that marijuana has a good cousin, the hemp plant, with a much higher concentration of CBD. That means hemp gives you all of the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the U.S. and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill changed that, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S. and creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. And they need land to grow all of these plants. Folks, this isn't rocket science. It's just an incredible investment opportunity, and that's where our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in. Their business model is simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords. And you can get in on the action. My friends at 420 Real Estate decided to do something special for the Roland Martin Unfiltered family. Originally, the minimum investment level was $500. But right now, you can invest in this crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200. That's right, $200 up to $10,000. Let me recap. This is a $340 billion industry that is still growing. And you can participate with as little as $200. To invest, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game and get in the game now. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.